Hello, everyone. This is Stacie. I'm here with Leah, and we are here for another Lessons with Leah. Leah is graciously joining us, even though she's not feeling her best. So if she sounds a little congested, well, we've all been there. So Leah, tell us about this last Friday.
This Friday was super fun. We competed at Oklahoma. Overall, it was a really strong meet. Definitely, a very close matchup. I got to be the leadoff in our floor lineup, which was the first time I competed floor this year, which was very exciting. My routine
Woohoo!
went really well. It was the first time I'd ever competed that routine, so I found out there's a couple things that I can work on, like my leaps and a couple things in my tumbling passes. I had a few deductions across the board, but overall, it was a really good routine. I was proud that I set off the floor lineup on a good note, doing it to pretty much the best of my ability. It was one of the better routines that I'd done recently, considering I hadn't done that many. And yeah, I felt good about it. Really ready to sharpen those little things so I
Yeah.
can get a higher score. But overall, my performance went well, and the team did really well overall. We had a few mistakes here and there, and we ended up falling short of Oklahoma by about 2/10, but we'll get them later, and it was overall a good night. We had a great
Good.
score.
Well, I first want to recall back to, I think, literally just 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, where we re-honed in on your season goals, knowing that if you were shooting towards those, getting back into the lineup would totally, of course, happen. And here we are, and it did, and that's so exciting,
Yay.
and we wanna celebrate every step of the way, so that's a huge step, right? Yeah,
Thank you.
and I love that. I just always Sometimes it's easy to forget the work that we've done to get to a certain part, and then, like you said, be like, "Okay, on to the next thing. Now I need to, like, figure out how to make the routine better and all of the things," but, like, it's so helpful to stop and, like, really soak in, like, "Hey, I did this step. It was so important to me, and I created it."
Yeah.
So, if you had to look back, what did you do to create the result of getting into the floor lineup this week and being able to lead off?
Thank you. Well, I think there was a mixture of a bunch of things that kind of put into a recipe of being able to accomplish that. The first being, after some emotional roller coaster, not just like giving up
Yeah.
after I took my ankle earlier in the season. Even though it was a very minor thing, it was still very frustrating and would have been easy to say, like, all is lost or whatever. And I did feel like that for a second. But just keeping moving forward and adjusting my approach was definitely helpful. I was able to take it day by day, which was really hard. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat that and say, like, oh, I just had to keep moving forward. It was a couple rough weeks there, but showing up each day and just doing the best that I could and staying aware of my body and knowing my limits and also getting creative in that. Okay, so maybe what's creating all the stress about getting back into the floor lineup and creating doubts is doing my double pike on the floor again soon because, like, I know I can do that skill, but that's what tweaked my ankle and it didn't feel ready to, like, get that landing from a physical perspective. So just switching my routine and not shutting off all the other possibilities that, "Hey, wait a minute. There are other passes that I can do, that I could piece together into a routine that does have a 10-0 start value if I
Right.
just think about it for a few minutes." Um, and then adjusting that was definitely a step that was helpful. And then I think the mindset shift that we talked about last week or the week before, just really getting into that upward spiral instead of allowing myself to go down the rabbit hole of misery and self-doubt and all of that fun stuff that doesn't help you succeed, along with remembering that, my goals at the beginning of season were to get 10s and do all this amazing stuff, and resetting my sights on that instead of, "Oh, I just wanna compete this year." And bringing it back to trying to envision the best possible outcomes that I could think about for this season instead of just thinking about how I can get through. And that really flipped a switch in my mind, I think, and allowed me to bring more of an energy to the gym. Like we talked about the 4 panel mat goals. When you got to jump up to a high thing, you're going to make it. But when you're only jumping up to a low thing, like you're barely jumping. And that's what I felt like I did, and I jumped high and I achieved the low thing. But really, it was just so fun to be back out there. I can say that I did really enjoy every moment of that routine, which, I do love competing floor, but especially with that routine that I competed, I felt so confident. I wasn't really super nervous about anything. I, of course, had those general nerves, like, "I'm competing, I want this to be a good routine, like, this gotta be good, I can't mess it up," type stuff, but I knew in my heart that I could do those skills, and I was really consistent on them, and the likelihood of me making it was very, very high because I had been always making my routines in the gym, and
Yeah.
having that trust of, "Hey, just be normal. You know how to do this." And for a first meet out, I think that was good. Like when my coach came over to me and was like, "You got this," I was like, "Yeah, I got this." And that felt really good.
That's so fun. One of the things that we wanted to work on when we very first started coaching was helping you have a different experience of competing. So, how do you feel like that went in terms of being able to use the mindset tools that you've learned and just the shifts in mindset that you've had to did you still experience the being crazy anxious and nervous for the whole day before? Like, what was it like? Was it different? Was it better? Was it the same?
It was definitely way different, and I feel like I competed freely. Like, of course, I was still doing I run around like a crazy person the whole meet when I'm competing. I gotta keep my energy up, and then I just feel like I'm running all over the place, but, that's just how I work, and it's fine. Um, but I wasn't the anxiety was gone. Yes, I was running, on, another level of the word is not uptightness, because I wasn't uptight, and I think that was what's different. It wasn't like an uptight, energy I can't release until I've done a good routine. It was more like I'm on this high vibration, and I'm excited, and I'm channeling that energy into hopefully doing a really good routine and just being grateful that I had the opportunity. I think that was the big shift. I mean, something I wanted to cultivate this year, and it definitely happened, especially for having to sit out the first several meets of
Yeah.
the season. And even with being when I exhibition last week, it was different. I was really nervous for that routine. Like this floor routine, I didn't feel that nervous for, but I was super nervous, but it was like a positive nervous. Like I was so glad that I got to, be in that position. And yeah, so definitely a better experience that didn't feel like it was just dreadful and draining. And I'm making not competing sound like awful right now, but it's so fun and I've always loved it.
Yeah.
Just the overall vibe of the season, I felt like I couldn't be myself, and I was just stressed about each Friday night and get through the next one, try to relax a little, like, take your mind off of everything related to the meet, for, like, a while,
Yeah.
uh, and being, like, a kind of not so myself, normal, smiley, nice person with my family on meet days and things like that. So I feel like that's been a lot different this year, and that is something I'm happy about, although it's still annoying that I had to miss all of these meets.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, there's definitely positive aspects of it, and
Yeah.
where we are now is better.
Good.
We made some
Well,
improvements.
I just know that so many of the gymnasts, at least that I'm coaching in our program, can really learn and relate from that. So much of their experience is just like every turn in practice, everything is so serious and so anxious, and it's always like, well, how's the meet going to go, and am I going to do well? And being able to really shift your mindset to be in a place where, of course, you're going to feel nervous, but you can really actually enjoy the journey,
Yeah.
is such a different place. So I'm so excited that you got there. That's a huge victory, right? Yeah.
Definitely, thank you, and coming up, we have TWU. This weekend is a quad meet, and then the next week is SEC, so we're entering postseason, and it's an exciting time, and I think that the challenge for not just me, but the whole team is to stay locked in during this
Yeah.
time, and it's easy to be like, "Oh my gosh, we only have 6 weeks left of season," which just blows my mind, but we need to be, like, the most focused that we've been for these 6 weeks, because when you start thinking ahead of yourself about after season or whatnot, that's when it's easy to get unfocused and just go through the motions,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that is important that we need to keep in mind, and yeah, if you have any
Yeah.
suggestions around
Well,
that.
absolutely. Let's coach on that, because again, like, you're not alone in that. Even like kids in the JO program, um this is the time where that same thing is happening. We're getting towards state. We're start looking at, I coached somebody yesterday who was like, I don't even know. It's all like the season's already lost.
Mm,
And it's like, well, actually, we're just starting. We're just actually getting started. It's
yeah,
almost like, you know, we call it postseason, but it's like these are the meets that matter the most to you,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Versus the meets
yeah.
in regular season are like all just the lead up. It's like they're the practice for the meets that matter the most to you.
Yeah, I mean, all our team goals are pretty much tied to postseason.
Exactly.
Winning SECs is a huge thing, and then you have to do good at regionals in order to get to nationals, which is the main goal of winning nationals.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of pressure surrounding these meets, and
Yes.
they're so much fun, but, like, depending on how things go, it's really easy to let one event, one routine, one meet as a whole, like, affect the vibes of the rest of the seasons. For
Yeah.
example, like, one little thing goes wrong in one person's routine at SECs, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, like, we lost this meet," and then it's, "Oh my god,
Yes.
we're gonna lose nationals. Oh my gosh, are we gonna even make it there?" And it's, first of all, not fair to
Yeah.
anybody that has a little mistake like that, and I mean, we all, like, never really, like, care if some that's not the right word.
Yeah.
Caring is, we want each other to do the absolute best of our abilities, but it's not like anybody's mad if somebody messes up. But in my experience, it's like whether it's myself or somebody else, it just gives that, like, doubt over the whole thing,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's normal, I'm assuming it is, but that all is lost, like, quick spiral is really easy to go down when really if the next person, which is totally out of my control, sticks their routine, sticks their disc on, it's like, boom, like, back on it, and then you forget. So I feel like in postseason, at least for me, a lot of outcomes are tied to every little action.
Yes.
And remembering that is not every second is a big deal. I am just now realizing as I'm talking through it might be important. And the same thing can happen on a day-to-day basis. I
Yeah.
have so many days when I'm in the gym and I'm like, "Oh, I have so much energy today. It's gonna be a great day." And then I do one messed up thing in warm up and fall on my first series or something like that, and I'm like, "Oh,
The practice is lost.
day." And, it's easy to be like, "Oh, this practice is just bad today, like, whatever,
Yeah.
we'll do it better next time." When in reality, I could go up and nail 5 in a row right after that and have a fabulous rest of the day,
Yeah.
and that is exactly the scenario that happened yesterday, actually, and yeah, so avoiding that all is lost mentality can be harder um, than it sounds, but I think it does go back to, like, getting on that upward spiral instead of going down the rabbit hole.
Yes. Absolutely. So let's talk about two things. One, um, I wanna let's talk about this next week, but we've just released a free guide called How to Calm Your Competition Nerves. And we go through 4 steps in order, just kind of 4 different mindset tools that you can use. So I'd love to go through those with you next week. So all of you listening, tune in. We'll do that next week. Or you can sign up for the free guide right now. It's available, and I'll put that in the show notes. And then we're going to do a free training March 19th on the same thing. So how to calm those competition nerves. And really it is about taking that pressure off and how to release the pressure valve in
Yeah.
order to be able to focus in on the moment,
Mm,
right? But before we get there, what I would love to do is kind of figure out like what we do in our program to help through this time in the season is to refocus again on those end of season goals. And I did it a couple weeks early with you just because of where you were going with, but I think we have an exercise I'd love to take you through. But I think that same thing, like let's refocus in on those goals and then on every single thing that we're going to do to get there so that we can kind of make a plan to refocus our brain and re-energize our brain through these next 6 weeks.
yeah.
So this is an exercise I learned from my coach. It's called the Mt Everest exercise. I don't know if he made it up or, what that is, but we're going to like look to the end and we're going to do it through visualization.
Ooh, I like
So,
that.
what I want you to visualize, where is nationals this year? I can't Oh, it's in
It's in Fort Worth, Texas,
Fort
and
Worth. Yeah.
that's where it's been the past several years, so I'm, like, very familiar with
Yeah. Yeah, with that Dickies Arena. I went to
it.
nationals, US nationals there last year, and my favorite moment as a side note was the zoo. I went to the zoo one day, like, I was kinda just like, "I need to be out of the gym for a little bit," and, I went to the zoo, and it's such a great zoo, and it was such a just fun, relaxing, like, be outdoors, get a free moment. So, that was my like, of course, the competition was awesome, but that was a highlight for me there.
Nice.
Fort Worth Zoo. Okay, so we're going to imagine that we are in the hotel. Wait, let's just let's get super detailed. Will you charter a flight and fly back that night, or will you guys stay the night?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Just take a
I
guess.
can visualize the hotel.
Okay, so we're gonna imagine we're in the hotel the next morning, and you have a quiet moment. You've gotten
Oh,
up
probably
before.
won't be there anymore, but after you know what we always do right after the meet
Yep.
is we meet up with the parents in a parking lot, because actually the past 2 years we have flown back right after the competition, and that's something I would guess we're gonna do that again, and,
Okay, so what we're gonna envision is here in your apartment.
okay,
It's the next morning.
okay,
You're waking up. You've woken up. You're drinking your morning tea, coffee. What do you drink in the morning?
water.
Water. I was like,
I
I
mean,
know
I'm eating oatmeal.
I know she doesn't drink coffee, so I can't remember what it is that she does.
I eat oatmeal in the morning usually.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna go there. Ready? Let's close our eyes. Oh, do you have anything to write with?
Sure, but I don't have a paper. Give me, like, half a second.
Half a second. So while she's doing that, here's what we're gonna do is we're going to, if you want to do this with us, you can totally do this with us. Press pause, go get a piece of paper and something to write with.
I got it.
Okay, so we're doing some journaling the next morning. We're reflecting back on the night before. Okay, so close your eyes, and I want you to imagine it's the next morning right after nationals. You've woken up, eaten your oatmeal, drinking your water, and now you're just going to take a little bit of time to journal and reflect on the last 6 weeks. You
Okay.
remember back to sitting down 6 weeks ago to really think through what this moment would be like. And now you're remembering the process that got you here. Last night was so much fun. You met up with the parents right afterwards in the parking lot, and everybody was screaming and hugging because you guys just won nationals.
Woo!
Woohoo! Not only did you win nationals, you got to compete floor and beam and just had the routines of your life. In fact, you got 2 10s in the same meet. You got a 10 on beam and a 10 on floor. Okay?
Woo!
And we are remembering this happening. It's the next morning, and I want you to close your eyes. It's the next morning, and you're remembering back to when this happened. You can imagine yourself in Dickey's arena. You can hear the crowd. You can see the scoreboards. You can remember exactly what it felt like to be there last night when you won nationals and you scored 2 10s. So now you're just spending a little bit of time reflecting back to how you got there. I want you to think back to 6 weeks ago, and I want you to remember 6 weeks ago, what was the goal that you set in order to get to this spot? Go ahead and write that down in your journal, remembering back to 6 weeks ago and the goal that you set then. Okay, and thinking about this goal, I want you to then now take a minute to write down every single thing that you did over the past 6 weeks to reach this goal. Let's compartmentalize it. First, I want you to think of the stuff that you did outside of the gym. What did you do in terms of sleep and rest and health and food and fueling in order to set yourself up for 6 solid weeks of training towards meeting this one moment of winning nationals? And then now I want you to think through everything you did for Beam. What are all the actions that you took in order to get to this place, this one moment where you got a 10 at nationals? What was everything you did on floor? Now I want you to think through what are all the things that you did in order to get your mindset in a good spot?
I think that one's tougher.
Okay. We can work on that one then. We'll remember back to working on that one. And then finally, is there anything that you did in terms of recovery, rehab, to take care of your ankle and the rest of your body? Remember back. Was there some specific important things that you did?
Okay.
Okay. Now, what we're going to do is I want you to remember back to the do goals that you set 6 weeks ago. Now, a goal is not necessarily in your control, right? Like we can do everything possible, but you've got teammates, you've got all the things. So you've got judges, like you can't always have
Mhm.
control over reaching your goal completely. But there are things that you have control over, and we call those do goals. So these are the things that you have a goal that you're going to do. So I want you to look back at those different categories, at the things that you said you were going to need to do. And I want you to set a do goal for each one of them. Sorry.
Okay.
I want you to remember the do goals that you set. And let's get back into that spot because we've kind of gotten out of it. But let's get back into that spot. You're going to revisualize. This is the morning after. You just accomplished this. What were the do goals that you set 6 weeks ago that set you up for success in order to accomplish? So one for each area. One for food and fueling, rest, one for recovery, one for beam, one for floor.
Got it.
Cool. All right. And now, one more time, you're thinking back to the feeling that fueled all of these actions, the feeling that fueled getting here. What's the main feeling you wanted to cultivate or that you cultivated over the past 6 weeks to really get you to this moment?
Energy and intention.
Love it. All right. So now you have your plan for the next 6 weeks that came from your brain, from your future self who has wisdom over what you in particular need to do to accomplish those things, from your future self who's envisioning this moment. And what I also want to encourage you to do is to continue to take yourself back to this as often as you can. Even, like we talked about, when you're having that rough day, but also even when you're not, when you're just thinking about, okay, what do I want to do in practice today? I want you to take yourself back to this future moment and going, what would I remember having done from this future self who's already accomplished the goal?
Totally.
Okay. So you said, let's work a little bit on the mindset part, the things that the do goals for the mindset that you might need to do.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on that?
I mean, honestly, this was my main goal as well. And I wanted to ask you if this is a good goal because it definitely does not match the SMART goals framework that everybody always talks about. And
Yeah.
it's 3 words: win each moment.
Yeah.
And that's the mindset I wanna cultivate. It's really hard to measure, like, did I do that or not?
Right.
It feels more of like a mantra to live by on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
and I have to give kudos to my coach Adrian for, planting that seed for that one,
Yes.
coming up with that, but I think that is the mindset that really will help me achieve these things,
Yes.
bringing, anticipating success and bringing attention to every
Yeah.
meal and routine and day and not just, like, gallivanting around and doing whatever and being intentional. I think that is really huge for me. Um, so yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. So I think the most helpful thing, there's two things. One is every day thinking about your goal, not winning each moment, but your goal of winning nationals.
Yeah,
And then working on your belief towards that goal. And so you just you answer on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I at today in my believability about that goal?
well, I'm
And
really glad that you said that because I was gonna ask, can we touch on the belief part of it
yeah,
a little bit after this call? Because, I mean, there's a lot of things outside of our control about winning nationals. I mean, it runs
100%.
everybody on our team and everybody on all the other teams, and
Yeah.
it's definitely possible. We'll put it there.
I'm so glad you actually brought this up because somebody actually commented on one of our posts this week the same question.
Yeah,
So when you think about a goal in general, let's just talk about goals in general. Like, you think about people whose goals are to win an Olympic gold medal. You think about people whose goals are in business to make a certain amount of money. I know you're also an entrepreneur. So you think about creating a business and you have a monetary business goal or a customer's goal or, those kinds of things.
yeah,
Really, when it comes down to it, almost every goal that we set in life, that's something like that, there are elements or even many elements outside of it that are outside of our control.
and I think my personal contribution to that is slightly more in my own control.
Yes.
As me competing and doing well at nationals, I mean, that is something that I do have some control over. While there are still many other elements, um, I think that is more tangible for me to focus on because when I think about, "Oh, like, we won nationals." Well, one way we could win nationals is relying on everybody else to do awesome too. And
Right.
so I need to keep focused on but, like, I wanna be a part of it so, so bad. Like, I
Yeah.
wanna be for
Yeah,
your
and maybe
nationals,
we
I
wanna
wanna
state
be
that
part
is
the
that you win nationals and you're part of the lineup.
Yes, exactly.
Like, that's your goal, is you win nationals and you are on the beam and floor lineup.
And I do my job to the best of my ability, whether I
100.
get a 10 or not, like, take the scores out of the
Yeah,
equation, but, like, I do my best routine
yeah,
at nationals to do my job to help my team end up hopefully winning.
yeah.
Um, and, like, win or not, doesn't matter, just put it all out there and do my best. I think
Well
that's my goal. Um,
well, I wanna dial you back for a minute, though, because
yeah,
one of the reasons that we're afraid to set goals that have elements that aren't in our control, or even elements that feel unbelievable, like get a 10 on both events,
yeah,
is that we're afraid if we don't reach that goal, we're gonna feel disappointed, we're gonna be frustrated, we're going to have these negative emotions. So this comes back to the idea of a 4 panel mat goal.
yeah,
I think for you, like, you can jump up onto 4 panel mats, right?
yeah,
So, may and I we usually say 4 panel mat goals a lot for our younger kids, so let's say 5 panel mat goal.
maybe 6.
Okay,
I'm
6?
pretty good at box jumps.
Okay, so 6 panel mat goal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, going after that big goal, there's no downside,
that is very
because let's say you go after getting a 10 on each event, and yes, we know that you can't control the judges, and you
yeah,
don't get to control if you're even in lineup, and you don't get to control any of that, right? And yet, in going after it, you get to control everything about the energy and the frequency that you're putting out into the world. You get to control everything about the work that you do to get there. You get to control. So it's like you have all the control and you have none of the control at the same time.
yeah, that's really interesting.
And that's okay. The
Yeah,
important part of going after a goal is who we become in the process of getting there. And
mhm,
when we go after a 6 panel mat goal, like getting a 2 tens at nationals and winning nationals,
yeah,
well, what if we only get up to 4 panel mats? What if you get 9 nines and win nationals?
yeah.
You're
I feel
still,
like
like, over the moon excited.
I feel like we're getting into, like, a really good philosophical discussion because it's like, well, yeah, I would say that accomplished a goal, like getting a 9-9 on events and winning nationals, that is huge. That
Yeah,
would make me so happy. I think that the part that I need to work on over these
yep,
next few weeks is that believability
yes,
aspect because even of, like, me going up and getting a we'll say a 9.95 because can totally do that, and maybe even a 10. Getting 10 at nationals is really hard, but, like, we'll just say I did fabulous routines. Like, yeah, that's possible. Uh, but for me, just sitting here and, like, the believing it is gonna happen, I'm only at about a 6 out of 10.
absolutely, and
And
that's the mindset work.
yeah,
Yeah,
because and I don't wanna make excuses,
yeah.
but I think that the
Well,
things
here's the
that are holding me back from believing that is what I will do, which it is possible I wanna do it, like, I'm energized just thinking about it, but the things that are holding me back about thinking it will happen and that, like, certainty of yes, um, is that I haven't competed much this season and I haven't gotten close to getting a 10, and, wondering, like, will my coaches wanna put me in if I haven't shown that I'm ready and have this consistency and scoring potential because that's what they care about for postseason, and my teammates just being the absolutely incredible people they are, like, getting that comparison aspect of, like, right now, I'm like, I would rather have, um, be as good as somebody else or, like, do their routine, because they'll probably score higher, and, I also want what's best for the team, and I wanna be a part of that so bad, and I feel like my thoughts right now are all convoluted,
yeah,
but it all is coming into these slight doubts of, "Can I do that?"
100%. 'Cause here's the thing, if you knew 100% that you could, it wouldn't be a belief. it would be a fact or a knowledge, usually of something that's already happened.
Mhm. Interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
when we get to the point where we're like, "Yeah, totally, 100%, I completely know, I have 0 doubts that this thing is gonna happen," is when it's already happened. Which is
Mhm.
why we go to our future self for wisdom. Because when we look at that future person, she's not worried about how it's gonna happen. She's
Yeah,
not thinking anymore. She's not in that like, Leah of that morning is not going, "Well, but I don't know if my coaches would wanna put me in." Your coaches already put you in. She's not going, "Well, I don't know if I have the ability to be consistent again for postseason when I haven't had, all the experience of meets up to this point." She did
yeah,
it. She's not, you know what I mean? And so we can look to that without the worry to figure out the how to get there and the parts that you can do.
totally.
But what's the number one reason that you would have a mental objection that your brain would say no to wanting to work on a goal that feels super huge, like 2 tens at nationals and winning?
I'm scared to mess it up.
Yeah, yeah, right?
Yeah.
And why would you be scared to mess it up? What would you be afraid of?
The disappointment of letting myself and my team down.
Yes. When it comes down to it, we're always afraid of a feeling.
Yeah,
Well,
that's definitely it.
here's the thing. If you work crazy hard towards 2 tens at nationals, winning nationals, and your team doesn't win nationals, are you going to be disappointed?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, of course, it'd be cooler to have fun, but, like, I would still be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you be disappointed if you got to nationals, you got to compete, you got 2 of the best routines with 2 of the best scores of your life? I mean, you've already done a 10 on beam, so but, these are some of the best scores you've ever done at nationals,
Yeah.
but they weren't 10s. Would you be disappointed?
No, and that's happened before, but considering being that's, like, exactly how it went down last year. I did 2 of my best routines of the season, had a great meet, did my job, and was really proud of myself,
Yeah,
and the team as a whole too. I
yeah,
mean, even though we came up, like, what was it, 1/10 short of winning? Like, I had so much pride for our team, and that was amazing. I think the thing that I don't even wanna, like, put this out into the universe, but it is truly what's scaring me, and I think better to probably think through it now, 6 weeks before nationals, so we can deal with these feelings,
yes,
um, and, go after those, multiple 10s and winning nationals is doing great, getting to the point where I'm in the lineup at nationals and having a mistake and being the person that, like, if I had made it, we would have won
yeah,
type deal. And I mean that now I'm like, well, yeah, everybody's probably thinking that, but, like, that is a big fear. That is ugh.
yeah. So how would you know that your score so let's take this last meet. You guys lost by 2 tenths.
Yeah.
Okay, you got a 9.75 on floor,
Well, yeah, if I got a 995, we would have won.
right? But how do you know that your 2 tenths is the 2 tenths that made you lose?
Oh, that is true because, like, it could have been me or anybody else or a combination of, like, 4 people that got a half 10th higher, a combination of 8 people that got a quarter 10th higher, um, to make that difference. Yeah,
Okay, I want you to let that sink in, for real. The idea that one person's actions won or lost the game is not true,
yeah, that
right?
takes weight off. Yeah, that
Because why are those 2 tenths more important than the quarter of a tenth on each person?
yeah.
it comes back to what we talked about with falling. Why are the 5/10 from a fall worse than 5/10 overall for bent knees? Like, tenths are tenths no matter where they're taken from, and
Mhm.
there's no such thing as one person I mean, they do that, like they do that in every sport, right? It's always the things that happen at the end that, like, won or lost the game, but that's not
Yeah,
true.
and I
It's
think
the
that's
whole thing that happens. It's every person's score. There's no such thing as one gymnast who won or lost a meet. The only way that could be happened is if every single person got a 10 on every event, except for one person who got a 9.95. Then you could go that 5, that half a tenth was the winning or losing of the meet.
and there would have to be 2 people that got a 9.95 because you couldn't drop a score
Yes.
or whatever it was.
And so then which person,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as one gymnast winning or losing it. If I remember last year, didn't okay, now I'm having one of those, like, doubting myself. Oklahoma won, right?
Mhm.
And Reagan was the final beam routine?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty positive if I remember right, Reagan was the final beam routine, and she came
It's
in
usually
clutch, and
Gator.
she killed it.
Mhm.
And everyone's like, "Reagan won the meet," but guess who fell? No, it was Reagan was the final floor routine.
No, we were on the floor.
You were on floor, so she was the final sum routine, but she
Yeah.
also fell on the first event. So it's
Mm,
like, did she win it or did she lose it? Which one is it?
yeah,
Neither.
the team as a whole,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And even that idea, like, we tend to only do it on the negative side, but could you imagine ever thinking, "My floor routine, that's what won the meet."
I've done a lot of beam routines where everybody's like, "Leah came in clutch, like, we
Yeah,
needed her to come through and make that routine," and just thinking about those moments, it, like, gives me a boost of confidence, but
yeah,
on my own perspective, I'm like, "I didn't win it, I just did my normal thing, and everybody else also
there
contributed."
you
I mean,
go.
yeah, if I had fallen, then a couple of us would have messed it up, um, but I never, like, took the pride of, like, I was the reason that we came out on top,
Yeah,
and it's cool to be like, I got that confidence from I needed to do a clutch beam routine, otherwise we weren't gonna come out on top, but, like, yeah, I guess what it
but
all comes
yeah,
down to.
if you were never able or willing or in a brain place to say, "My routine won the meet," then why would it be my routine lost the meet?
That's true.
The same thing applies on both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. So how do I do the work that I need to, like, believe this is happening because this can happen?
Yep,
I think in our conversation, I've brought up that believability from, like, a 6 to a 7.5. Uh,
totally. And this is how you do the work. So what you're gonna do is every day, you're gonna write out your goal,
mhm.
and then you're gonna put on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your believability? It's probably never gonna get to a 10 until after it happens, and that's okay,
Yeah,
right? Because we tend to not fully believe something until we've experienced it. I mean, our brain has to have evidence of past success to fully believe something,
right.
so that's okay. But what we wanna do is we just wanna keep increasing it, keep increasing it, keep increasing it, and sometimes you are able to where you've done so much work on it because our unconscious brain doesn't know the difference. Our unconscious brain can only live in the moment.
Mhm.
So it doesn't know the difference between when we're thinking about the future, the past, or the present. It actually can't navigate that. So when you spend so much time telling your unconscious brain that this has already happened and you visualized it and you believed it, there's a part of you that might get to 100%. But
So just pretend that it's already happened, and that's the way to
that's
go.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep
Then
visualizing it. We're gonna keep visualizing that it already happened.
uh-huh.
So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna write out all your thoughts about why you're not at a 10. So
And
the
even
things
if it's at, like, a 2 for some day, I
Yep,
still am writing it down, and I'm still saying,
yep, and then you're gonna write out your thoughts about what you would need to do, what you would need to believe to be at a 10.
"Okay,
Like, what so first you're gonna kinda get the objections out, and
yeah,
then you're gonna kinda answer them from that future place that's already
mm,
experienced it,
mhm,
that's looking back and giving you wisdom. What would you need to believe to be at a 10?
yeah." Oh, and I have a fun thing to tell you, because 'cause I'm a big person of writing down goals, and so I'm definitely gonna
Yeah.
do this. Um, I wrote down a few weeks ago, I should have put the date, that would have been fun. But I was like, "I am on my way towards nailing a beam and floor routine at a meet this season." And yay!
And
Well,
you
I we'll just subtract the full term from that. We still gotta nail the beam routine, but I nailed the floor routine and I made a beam routine, so
Yeah.
that was cool. And I know I can point to so many times where I've, like, written down in a journal or on a sticky note or somewhere, like, I want to know what it feels like to nail a beam routine at a college gymnastics meet, like, before I had ever competed, um, and didn't know I was gonna be in the lineup, and then I did. And, like, I wanna know what it feels like to get a 9-9 on beam and floor at a meet, and then I did it, like, a couple weeks later, and so, yeah.
So you have evidence in the past, and I even wanna say that even now, you can look back and you're like, "Well, I of course I was gonna get back into the lineup, like, I knew that." But yet we can also probably listen back to some podcasts from even, 5, 6 weeks ago where there's a big part of you that also was not sure.
I did not know. I might forget later, but yeah, I definitely was very doubtful.
Yeah, right?
So what
So
is
so you
stopping
wanna use that evidence where
Yeah,
6 weeks ago, I was so doubtful that I could accomplish this, and I did. And so now I'm so doubtful that I could accomplish that, but what if I could in the same way?
yeah, yeah.
So these are the kinds of thoughts that we're gonna get to raise our believability from a 6 to a 999.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so
Let's
that's
do
your
it.
work, and, we'll talk more about it next week.
Sounds great.
All
Thank
right. Thanks
you.
so much, and I will see you everybody next week.
Sounds good.
Bye.